Well, good afternoon. Wasn't very loud. Good afternoon. Hey, everybody doing fine? So you are quite spread out. The temptation is to ask you to move, but it's the last session of the seminars, and you're all looking very comfortable. So hopefully you'll manage to listen from there. My name is Lisa, as I said, and I come from Fraserburgh, which is just 40 miles in the northeast, in the middle of nowhere. So it's been a real interesting journey. I've been involved with children's work for quite a while. Not my choice, God's choice. But when you find your niche in church, you grow, don't you? And when you're doing what God's called you to do, you grow. So it's been my privilege for the last few years now to be leading the children's ministry. I started off, I grew up in the church that I'm in. Just to give you a bit of background, I've been there all my life and started a kids club 24 years ago. And that is still going. I've been the children's pastor since 2002. They haven't fired me yet, so that's a good sign. But I love children, but I love church. Do you love church? Do you know, that's what we're primarily trying to build, and I think that's important for me when we're speaking about building bridges. When I started off and I was young and enthusiastic and probably very self-centered in the sense of the children's ministry, I thought was the only thing that was happening in church. And it took me a bit of time to realize that other parts of the church was just as important as the children's ministry. And where I want to start from today is you can't build bridges outside your church if you haven't built bridges inside your church. How well connected are you to the rest of the ministries in your church? And that was a real starting point for me, because I need the youth ministry, I need the mothers and toddlers ministry, I need the senior ministry, I need the church, the services that happen on a Sunday, because if you're going to reach families, then they're going to connect into all those other ministries. They're not going to come along and sit in your kids club. The kids might be there, but the parents won't. And I want to share a little bit from 2 Kings, chapter 5 today. But before I go to that, can I ask who does children's ministry for church kids? Okay, community kids? A bit of both? Okay, so just when I'm talking, this happened last year. I never said that I was full-time. It made it sound like I was on glue because we were doing so many different things. But I am full-time, and we have a massive team that helps us do what we do. So I'm going to share some of the things we've done in church, some of the things we've done with the community kids, and I'm open to questions at any time. Hopefully we'll have some time for questions at the end. So 2 Kings chapter 5, it's a story of Naaman. And it says in verse 1, Now Naaman was commander of the army of the king of Aram. He was a great man in the sight of his master and highly regarded, because through him the Lord had given him victory. He was a valiant soldier, but of course he had leprosy. Now a band of raiders from Aram had gone out and had taken captive a young girl from Israel. She served Naaman's wife. She said to her mistress, If only my master would see the prophet who is in Samaria, he would cure him of his leprosy. Naaman went to his master and told him that the little girl from Israel had said this. And then, of course, the king tells him to go. Now, what really surprises me here is in the Bible, the little girl says to the mistress, but the Bible doesn't actually say that the little girl said to Naaman. But I am thinking how the story would work. The little girl says to the mistress says to Naaman, and Naaman goes to his master. Do you know, in kids' ministry, we need to be listening to what the little children say. Because you can't reach your families if you're not interested in each individual child. Because if you open your eyes in your kids' ministry, you will hear stories that you can help with. You will hear the little bits that are going on at home that you don't announce to the church or announce in the prayer time or the prayer meeting, but you can do something about it. And for me, you've always got to be listening to what the kids are saying. You've got to be listening to what's going on round about to see how you can help and impact their family. One of the things that I had to learn to start with was when we were talking to the parents, when the kids come into our kids' church, it's great to see them. But see, at the end, I stand at the door and when I'm on, and I talk to the parents as I'm going. I ask about their lives. I stop and speak to them when we're walking about church. If I see them in the corridor at church, I will be asking them about their family. There's nothing more irresistible to a parent than you asking about their child. Not you telling them about your holiday. Not you telling them about how terrible their behavior was. Not telling them about how you're finding it all really, really hard, but just focusing on their child. And what I found is if you start speaking about their child, they began to open up a little bit more about what's going on. You see, often the conversations we have with parents in church, or it is for me at times, can be about how they're not behaving and the problems. Anybody had those difficult conversations lately? But you see, if you learn to encourage a parent with their child, they've no problem taking the discouragement because you've already encouraged them. So when I see parents in church, I'm always asking how their family is, how they're getting on at school, commenting on how they're growing, how well they're looking, how well they seem to be fitting in with the kids around about them. And I'm just listening all the time for little snippets of anything that is going on. And this is it's been really interesting, actually. We've had a few things in church that's happened lately. We had a family that lost a little baby just in her due date. She had to give birth to a stillborn baby. And tragic situation. But my focus was to try and help this little child, but yet to try and help the family as well. And at that time, I'm also wondering, how can I help? How can I just come alongside them, tell them we're thinking about them? So we sent some books to the family to help them, to explain to the little girl what had happened. And the family, we've talked them through. They came, this little girl came into kids' church just about 3 months ago. Her mum was due with another baby, and she begins to feel unsettled. Now, we just completely focused on that child and talked mum through with it and made mum feel at ease. And it's been a real journey, because that little girl didn't want to come into kids' church, and then she did. But because mum trusted me, because of the relationship I had with her, because we were concerned when she lost the baby, we've been concerned when our kids have not been coming along to kids' church, because we've got the relationship there. We kind of journeyed that through. We've bridged the gap, and now mum's had another baby, which is absolutely fantastic, and we're able to help in that family situation with a little girl, and she's getting on fine, and everything is going well. So our church kids are fine. I'm going to need a bit of response from you. You're looking very serious. I'm looking at here because there's more response from my paper. Right. Can I tell you about how we've reached community kids and how I've been listening? When I first started, I didn't really have a clue what I was doing. And I remember sitting in church one day, and there was this lady came up to me, and her grandchildren had been coming to church. And she says, "Would you mind going round and visiting my daughter?" I'm thinking, are you joking me? I have so much to do, and I have to go and visit your daughter, who I didn't know. Okay, but her children came along to our kids club. So I thought, okay, I will go with this. I'm newly started, and I want to do my best. And I remember knocking on this lady's door, who I really didn't know. And she opened the door, of course, to me. "Oh, hi, it's Lisa from church. Just wondered if I could come round for coffee." Yes, that was fine. So we organised a time that I would come round for coffee, because I didn't want to intrude the first time. And I remember sitting chatting, and, that lady, just through the conversation, said, "I really need to get myself sorted out with Jesus. I really need to come back to church." She'd came to church as a teenager. She was a bit older than me, so I hadn't realised that. And that lady got her life sorted out with Jesus, and we're now 14 years on, and she's still coming along to church. And she has been involved in kids ministry. She's now involved in other parts of the church. But listening to what somebody else said and taking the time to go around to her house made all the difference. And if you want to build bridges with your families outside church, it takes a lot of work, a lot of hard effort, and sometimes being slightly inconvenienced as well. One of the things we did to help us to build relationships with the family was to go around and do house visits. Has anybody done house visits before? Who likes doing house visits? Who dreads doing house visits? Well, it was one of those things. I used to be quite shy, which is always a laugh these days. But when I was quite shy, I found that quite difficult to do. Now I love going around and visiting families, because you go into the door and you see the world that this child lives in. And it helps you to connect with them. It helps you to build relationships with them. So when we did kids camp before, we used to go around and visit all the parents. Now, if you've got 100 and odd kids going to camp, that's a lot of house visits to do. But now we don't do that the same. We've changed how we do it, but we still visit homes, because for me that's really, really important. Every Christmas time we go around with hampers. So we have a list that runs the whole year of any family that we think might be in need. People who have lost their jobs, people who have gone through a hard time, people who you know are struggling, they will be on the list. And this has been added to all the way through the year. And then when we get to December, as a church, we put out little tags and say, this hamper is for a family of 4. This is a suggested list. Can you provide a hamper? And all that happens is they take along a big bag of food with the number on it. We match the number to the family. We go round and, of course, deliver the hampers. Anybody else done that? Yep, it's a good thing to do for building relationships. I remember a couple of years ago, I arrived on Christmas Eve, so the families that are really struggling, we're not going out till Christmas Eve because I want them to have food on Christmas Day. Now, I know Christmas Eve is busy, and I know that's an inconvenience, but I want to build bridges. And it's just the most amazing experience to go around. When you knock at somebody's door, I did a couple of years ago, and I arrived with a bag of food. And we took some gifts as well with us, and you're looking at a man and his 3 daughters, and they just all cried and hugged because they couldn't believe what had arrived on their door. Do you know our relationships with that family is still there? The bridges are very strong with the family, and we do that. We send out normally about 25 hampers at Christmas time. So the hampers was the start, but people throw away clothes. Anybody here have second-hand clothes for children that can be thrown away? So we started doing this. Somebody came with a bag of jumpers and they said, they're really not worn all that much. Could you give them out to somebody? So I started thinking, and I thought, I'm not announcing this. I'm just going to go around to somebody's door, knock on the door and say, hey, I've got a bag of clothes for your child. Would you like it? And do you know, I've done it loads and loads of times. I've never been refused yet. I've never had it turned away. So it's something else that you can do. This afternoon, my aim is to throw out as many ideas to you as you can. So hopefully you're thinking, I could do that. That might help to build the bridges. Yes. Yes, on you go. Hi, I'm Lisa. It's as much as that, yes. So they come to Kids Club. They could come to Kids Club. I could hear about them. I might not have met them before. The parents have probably never met me before. But if you're interested in their child, they're interested in you. So some of them do. Some of them, that's the first time and they haven't been before. The majority come to our outreach. So this maybe makes it a wee bit different. 'Cause I live in a town with 14,000 people. And in our town, I would be quite well known with the children. And every year we see over 50% of the kids in our community come through the doors of our church. So if you put that over the 7 years, I know a lot of the children in our town. I don't know their names. I know a lot of the children would know me. So when I'm saying that if somebody comes to me and says, this family is really struggling and I haven't met them, I'm quite prepared to knock on their door because the worst thing that can happen is the door shuts. And that's never happened yet. And so it sounds crazy because it probably breaks all the rules, but I kind of think when God puts something in your heart and there's a door opening, who's put down the rule that you can't go and knock on somebody's door that you don't know? We're all adults. You can just take a friend with you. The worst that is going to happen is the door's going to shut. People used to do that years ago. And I think sometimes now, we like us 4 and no more. We like the coziness. We like that we're not feeling uncomfortable. But there's a world out there that needs Jesus. And if I've got a bag of clothes that could help a child, I'm quite happy to go and knock on their door and say hi. I knock on people's doors for a lot of random things. Nothing dodgy, though. Okay, nothing dodgy. One of the other things that we would build bridges with a family and go and knock on their doors is if somebody arrives at our kids club and they have learning difficulties or a specific need. And although we're getting better at dealing with autism and Asperger's and ADD and all those different things that come along, but one of the things that we've tried to do is have a conversation with the parent. So what we'll do is the child comes along and we think, oh, we need to work out here. What's the triggers? What's going to set him off? What's going to help? What's going to calm him down? And a few years ago, so this was maybe about 8 years ago, we had maybe a bit longer than that. Time passes, does it? And then you forget. We had this little boy who was 5, turned up at Kids Club. Oh my goodness, we just didn't know what to do with him. Anybody ever been there? You don't know what to do with him. You're trying to be Jesus' hands and feet, and you're thinking, oh help, how on earth do you deal with this child? And so we did a couple of weeks, and I thought, oh no, I need to go round to this lady's house. So again, knocked at the door, had never met her before, and introduced myself. I'm from Kids Club, just want to see if we can have a conversation about your child. I really want to help him. I never went over all the things he'd done wrong. She didn't need to know that. He lives with her. We need to think about that. So I really would like to help him. Can you describe how his behavior is, what helps him, and what can we do to help your child? Now, we had to go a step further than that. We had to bring in a special needs teacher to also help us put together a program. So to start with, he was in our Kids Club for 5 minutes. He was out for 5 minutes, walking up the stairs in the dark, because that was a treat, and that worked for him. He was back in for 5 minutes. He was out. He got to go and get a drink of water. This went on, and then 5 minutes became 10 minutes, became 15 minutes. And by the time he was 7, he was sitting in our Kids Club for an hour and a half, because we had helped to bridge the gap between what happened at home and what happened with us. But at the same time, we'd also built bridges with Mum. You never know when a child in your Kids Club's life's going to fall apart. But I don't know about you, but I want to be somebody that they feel that they can turn to. So we had this initial contact, and their kids, there's 5 kids. 5 kids. And these 5 kids, they weren't all old enough to come along then, but I think 3 of them did. And there was this summer club they weren't at, and one of the leaders pointed out, truth is, I didn't notice, okay? Because I don't notice everything, but somebody does. So when she said to me, those children are not here, I listened to her, and I went round to the house to see why they weren't there. Mum had been ill. She'd been diagnosed with cancer. And so we began to think, what could we do? So the next day, we were going on a trip to Aberdeen with the children. So the next day, I got somebody to make a lasagna. Not me, because you wouldn't want to eat my lasagna, but you wanted to eat this lady's lasagna. So I walked around the house with a lasagna, unplanned, and just says, hey, here you go. Would you like this for your tea? Delighted again, didn't refuse. We would love to take your kids with us to on our trip. Mum was absolutely overwhelmed. Do you know, with that family, within 6 months of doing that, they were evicted from their home. They were put in emergency accommodation. Relationship fell apart. Guess who was okay to knock on the door? The very weekend it happened. And says, hey, I've just got a bag of food for you here. We just wanted to see how we could help you as a church. Mum was ill. She's now got 5 kids on her own. And so we came up with this thing where we would give her food. We'd feed her, because she'd no money. She'd been evicted. She's still got kids to feed. She's not very well. So for a year and a half, we went around with 3 meals a week for 6 people, 5 kids plus Mum. And we just helped to journey through that with her. Do you know, whenever crisis has hit in that family, they've contacted the church. We've never made a big deal about it. We've never nobody knew who was making what meals. I just organised different people every second Monday, every second Wednesday, every second Friday. I went round and picked it up. It took a lot of time out of my week, because you had to go around and pick up the food. You then went and sat down with this lady and talked her through and just helped her. But it really helped to build bridges. Her kids still come to youth ministry, and some of them are still in kids ministry, because we've helped to bridge the gap. But, you know, it takes time. Another thing we did, if you've ever got a random TV being flung out, do you say that here? We had anything old, they come to me. Can you see the theme? Somebody says, oh, we've got 2 old TVs, so they're, oh, we'll have a game at Kids Club. Who would like to win a TV? They were like this massive, honestly. It was that day. And when TVs were big and the slim ones were just coming in. So we gave away 2 TVs. Just turned up at somebody's door again. Hi, your kid has won a TV. And that is a true story. And they opened the door, and the mum at the other side of the door says, you'll never guess what, our TV got stolen last week. We're absolutely delighted. That's bridging the gap again with the families. So the more crazy, the better. Something else that we've done is that when you go into some houses, they are, sometimes my heart sinks. Has anybody been in a house and their heart just sinks? And you can't, your brain's going, there is no carpet on the floor, the house is an absolute mess, there's no way I'm sitting down, please Lord don't let her offer me coffee because I don't know what I'm going to do. But at the same time, what a privilege to be standing in there. We had one family that came along to Kids Club, and life had just happened, and their house was such a mess. And I'm speaking about a little corridor in each room. 3-bedroomed house, one kitchen, one living room, one bathroom. And they really needed help. Because sometimes families are down such a dark hole. It's not our job to judge them. It's just our job to love them and to build the bridges. So I got 16 people on a Saturday. We went in at 10 in the morning. Nobody stopped for lunch because nobody wanted to eat anything. And you know, the first hour we went into that house, nobody judged, nobody said anything. Nobody said anything to each other. They were just overwhelmed, to be quite honest, as we went into this house and we started cleaning it. And we went to the skip 3 times with a massive trailer. We cleaned an entire house from top to bottom. And you know, it helped the family to get out of the rut. But the love that it showed the family, that how we as a church could care for them, was more than what words could have ever expressed. Those kids came to Kids Club and they just needed a hand. We still, when I see the kids, Mum is no longer here. Mum has passed away because it was a few years ago now, but the kids still remember the impact that we had with them, building bridges there. One of the not so crazy things that we do when I'm at Kids Club and the parents are lining up or coming in, I always make myself available to speak to the parents. And it doesn't take you long to see if a parent's going through a hard time. They'll tell you, if you're generally interested in them and interested in their family and how they're getting on, they will tell you, there's just little things that you can see. If I hear that a mom in or a dad in our Kids Club has been separated or they've moved away, I will find a bag of food. And I'll knock at their door, and hi, just been thinking about you. We're just praying for you just now. It must be really difficult what you're going through. And I'll just leave the bag of food. Sometimes I get in, sometimes I don't. My agenda is not to get in. My agenda is just to build bridges. We did that just 8 months ago with one family. Family had broken down, and we just arrived. I've been round with 2 bags of food, and Mum has been coming along to church just this last while with her family, which has been great to see. And you know, it takes a long time to see things develop. I don't have stories of salvation with everything that I've told you here, but I believe we're planting seeds all over the place. If you come into Fraserburgh and you ask about our church in Fraserburgh, they will tell you it's a place that you can go and get a bag of food. It's a place that will help you if you don't have something, whether it's a TV that's massive, or anything else. We have now, with social work phoning us up, we have people that will knock on our door, and honestly, knock on our door in the office and say, we're just needing help. I heard you can help us. We're a bit short of clothes. I heard you can help us. And you know, it's bridging gaps all the time, back and forth. One of the other things that we do as well is when parents are going through their hard time, we would I would go and speak to the woman, and the men, I would offer the men to go and speak with the men. So my stories are about the females. They're not about the guys, because somebody else is doing that. So just putting that out there. And one of my jobs that I also do is I work with the children's ministry in AOG over Scotland. And I started asking them what they do to bridge the gap with families. And see, when you just hear 1 or 2 interesting stories, I thought, we'll pass that on to you to see if it inspires you a little bit, because you're still not smiling enough for me, but I'll let you off with it. So one of my friends who's down south says every time a new family comes into church, she offers to meet them as quick as she can. She goes around at their house, or she meets them at church, and she has that one-to-one. Another, we were involved in helping set up a kids club a few years ago down south, and we are encouraging them in all they do. And one of the ladies says, I don't really feel that my ministry is with kids, but I love to work with the parents. So what they do, every week, they have 2 kids clubs that run, both an hour each, one slightly earlier, one a wee bit later. When the parents come in, she says, now you can stay, or you can just go through the room here for a cup of coffee. And she's called it Mary's Cafe. Her name's Mary, by the way. And Mary's Cafe is where the parents can just stay and chat. Now, when they first did this, they had no idea how it was going to help to bridge the family to build bridges between the family and the kids. And she says it was about 8 months of people just coming in. See, the timescales here are massive. If you're in this for the short haul, you're in the wrong ministry, because nothing happens fast in church and kids ministry. You need to be in it for the long haul. 8 months in, she says this couple had been coming in and staying for their coffee every week, an hour a week. And she says, and then when the child spoke to one of the kids leaders, this is where they're listening to what the child says, comes in again. The child had said that her mum had got cancer. They've been coming to Mary's Cafe for 8 months. So the first thing they do was Wednesday night, and the Thursday night they made contact with them. You can't be slow. You can't dither. You can't think whether you're going to do it or whether you're not. Just, if that's what you feel that you should do, just go and do it. They texted the next day. They arranged to meet. They arranged to pray for them. And as time went on, they started coming along to church. She was going through her chemo. Mom, dad, sister that came to Kids Club, and the teenager all asked the Lord into their hearts. Then the 4 of them all got baptized. And now, Mum is managing the food bank. Dad is covering the maintenance in church. And they've seen a whole family through Mary's Cafe coming in to their church. Amazing. And she had other stories as well where people were coming in. But one thread that always runs with me, if you make the connection before the crisis happens, it's an awful lot easier for you to knock on the door. Now, I'm quite happy to knock on anybody's door, as I've told you, but I'm always aware that when I'm in Fraserburgh, not so much in Aberdeen because I've less chance of meeting them, but when I'm going about Fraserburgh, I can meet a parent at any time. So see, when I go to Tesco's, when I go to Asda, if I go out for a walk, honestly, it's 24/7. Having a bad day outside with people in public is not an option because my testimony is at stake. And whether I am in the mood for talking about somebody else's problems or not, often the Lord gives us people when we are least expecting it. And sometimes I am like, oh, Lord, give me grace. I'm trying to listen to what's going on here, and I know I need to respond. But, I've had to learn to make it my life because I've stood in altar calls and says, Lord, use me. I'll do anything. And I'm in a community now where parents can stop me in Tesco's and tell me what's going on, where I can be out in the street. I've been blowing up my tires in my car, and somebody has given me a story. I've been lots and lots of different places. But when you've got a heart for your community to build the church, God is not short of giving you people that you can build bridges with. And I hope this afternoon that I've inspired you in some way. Please tell me honestly, it's like, so I'm a children's pastor. I need a better response. But for me, it's not about a tick list that this is what you do to bridge the gap. Because if you look at the bridges over Scotland, they're all built differently. They all span different widths and lengths. They all look different shapes and sizes. And for each one of us, our expression of kids ministry, our expression of bridging the gap between the families is going to look different. Never let anybody tell you what you're doing is not right. Because I've came to the conclusion, I don't care how crazy it sounds what I'm doing. If I believe that's what God has given me to do, that's what I'm going to do. And see if it works, then I'm happy to go again and try it again. And see if it doesn't, I haven't lost anything. But whatever you feel the Holy Spirit prompting you to do to help to build the bridges with the family, don't think about, I can't do that. To turn up with something old, to turn up with something second-hand, to turn up at somebody's door that I don't really know. How many lonely people are out there? How many parents are desperately needing a hand? And we can't wait till they come in here. We've got to go out there. Let me just finish with this before I take questions, if there's time. We have done family services now forever. And we've done them badly and we've done them well. Anybody else been there? And it's just, so we started doing them when I was employed by church, because they had to, because I insisted. No. See, then I remember this is recorded, and I think, imagine what I'd be like if it wasn't recorded. That's wild. Anyway, back on track. So we were doing family services, and the truth is, it took us a few years to learn to do them well. I had to do them badly before we learn to do them well. And it's just been building and building, and we can do a family service really well for our community now. A year and a half ago, it's summertime, we have had over 250 kids at our kids club for the summer. And we've been speaking to parents every day. I'm out there on the drive speaking to parents as they're in the queue. Hi, how you doing? Lovely weather, horrible weather. What you up to this summer? Chatting away. We get to our family service at the end of the week. There are more unsaved people in our building than saved people in our building. And our building holds a lot of people. And it was just kind of like tipped. I was so excited because that for me was bridging the gap yet again that they felt at home enough to come into our church. They're not at the back. See, like you lot, at the back. Now, I've been sitting there all day as well, so I'm not at just where you feel comfortable at this point, isn't it? But we came into church, they're on the front row, all these parents, and the second row, and the third row, all the Christians are at the back. I was like, it just was amazing to see, and that was because God has been very good. But if you bridge the gap well with your families and your parents and your community, they will feel at home enough to come and sit in the front row of your church, to sit in the second row of your church, to not think, is this anybody's seat? They just came and sat down. Do you know, since that time, we have had a tremendous amount of people attend our family services when we've learned to do it well for what works with us. We don't do them all the time. We only do them after the holiday clubs, after the events, so that we can get the parents to come in. But God has been very good and blessed us in a lot of ways. So I hope this afternoon it's inspired you in some way to go back and try and bridge the gap, as crazy as it might seem. If you feel that you need a bit of encouragement, just email me and say, Lisa, would you do this? And I'll just say yes. Okay, so if there's nobody else with you, just give me a shout and I can encourage you all the way. Does anybody have any questions? So, I'll either give you my email. It's Lisa, Lisa, at aogcentral.co.uk. We also have a website as well. But no, seriously, if you need a hand or encouragement in any way, I don't know everything, but I've given a lot of things a try. And I've done a lot of things well, and I've landed in a lot of trouble in church. And I've had a lot of fun along the way. It was funny when they asked the question today, what do you bring to church? I thought, I bring the fun. And I seriously used to be somebody that would have just stuck to what I thought you had to do. But our God is a great big God. And he doesn't stick to what you just got to do. So just go wild. It'll be great. Yes? So I would meet families with the mum and the dad. I just send other leaders round. I have a lot of male leaders as well. In our church, we've got just short of 50 volunteers that help with... but we are in a large church, so it's 300, our church. So we have, I would just send the guys around. So when I was speaking about the family at Christmas time with the guy, our first hamper that we sent, I didn't even know the street number. I just sent this man. I says, I think they live around about here. Just go and knock on doors until you find it. So he only knocked on 2 doors and he found it. But they have connected well with him. So I would just find the right guy to connect with the right family. And so we have quite a few men that are really good at that because they don't just go around once, they would follow up again. So they would, what I'm telling you, the stories here, there are stories that it's just been women, that I could get them to come and tell you the crazy stories because I'm not very good at the details on that side of it. But if it's a guy on his own, it definitely would be a man that connects with him because that's not healthy for me to be connecting in there. But at the same time, I would go around with somebody else to go and visit them. So I always just make sure I take somebody else with me if it is a guy, and I can't get one of the men to go around. But generally, they're just delighted with it as well. It's such a rewarding experience, and you don't do it for yourself. But see, when you just feel you're making a difference and you're helping a family, there's just something about that. So yeah, the guys are roped in just the same. Any more questions? Oh, you're very quiet. Has it been helpful? Are you ready to bridge the gap a bit more? Just keep trying. It doesn't happen the first time. It'll happen the second time. It'll be really good. So do we have a break just now? Great, because if I keep the microphone, I'll just keep talking.
Yeah, we'll give her a clap.